Hello, we're from the Mount Sinai Light and Health Research Center. In this video, we're going to show some field examples of how growers have used ultraviolet light, UVC, to fight specific agricultural pathogens, both bacterial and fungal. This is a follow-up to part 1, in which we gave some background on germicidal UVC. In part 2, we will show examples of how UVC has been applied in the field to crops such as strawberries, apples, beets, several cucurbits, and grapes. You can see a summary of those studies with all the detailed numbers for comparison in our annotated bibliography for field studies. That is posted on our website. And though this video does not discuss greenhouse and tunnel research with UVC, you can refer to our other annotated bibliography as well. A few points I want to cover first. For all the studies I'm going to talk about, I will list the dose in units of joules per square meter. Some of the studies tried multiple different doses. And a few of the studies compared different frequencies of application, such as once a week versus twice a week. All of the field studies are using the most prevalent UVC source, low pressure discharge mercury bulbs. Those are bulbs that look like fluorescent that I talked about in part 1. None of the field studies used the other UVC lighting technology that we discussed in part 1, neither krypton chloride excimer, nor UVC LEDs. Another point I want to make for ultraviolet field use, UVC should be applied when it's dark. The studies I'm going to talk about applied UVC to their crops 30 to 60 minutes after sunset. There are some daytime photos, but those are from when the researchers were measuring UVC exposure, not for treatment. UVC has been very successful with treating powdery mildew in strawberries. In the study shown on the left, researchers used 200 joules per square meter on 2 different frequencies, once versus twice a week. They had trials in 2 places where they grew strawberries, California and Florida. In the California trial, powdery mildew severity was reduced to a level that was similar to fungicide. In the Florida trial, once a week reduced powdery mildew severity to a level that was twice as effective as fungicide, and treating twice a week was almost twice as effective. On the right, the researchers looked at a low and a moderate dose of UVC once or twice a week. They also looked at UVC alone and in combination with fungicide, and the higher dose and the increased frequency showed better powdery mildew reductions. And combining UVC with fungicide more than doubled the effectiveness of UVC alone. With apples, researchers applied 200 joules per square meter once a week to treat both blossom blight and shoot blight. This was early in each of the 2 seasons they tested when blossoms were on the trees. This was high-density planting, so the UVC apparatus formed an arch over the canopy. The researchers inoculated with Erwinia amylovera at 80% bloom, and they showed that UVC reduced both blossom blight and shoot blight to a similar extent as conventional fungicide. We were part of a team working with Pathogens and colleagues to investigate the dose-response relationship between Cercospora leaf spot and table beets. That disease makes it difficult to mechanically harvest those beets. The researchers used a cart-like structure to deliver each of the doses they were methodically testing, and they treated the beets about every 4 days. They did show successful suppression of Cercospora leaf spot. The higher the dose, the higher the pathogen inactivation, but also the higher the phytotoxicity, that is, the damage to the leaf. At the very high doses above 1500 joules per square meter, they showed that increased phytotoxicity ranged from superficial bronzing to necrosis and leaf death. As you can see in the lower right, no phytotoxicity symptoms were observed in parts of the leaves that were covered by other plants. They noted that after 34 days, many of the leaves had actually recovered. Overall, they recommended optimized dose for beets of about 800 joules per square meter. To treat powdery mildew and cantaloupe, researchers tried 2 doses, once versus twice a week, and we're seeing their example of percent of cantaloupe leaf area showing powdery mildew symptoms. The researchers found that the disease severity reduced depending on what UVC dose and frequency was used, and that UVC effectiveness was comparable to fungicide. To treat downy mildew and cucumber, researchers tested even higher UVC doses once and twice a week, and they found that Downy mildew disease severity reduced with UVC, but less so at the lower doses than at the highest dose. When combined with fungicide, UVC further reduced severity. One more cucurbit treated with UVC was yellow squash. The researchers examined both powdery mildew and angular leaf spot. They looked at conventional fungicide use and use of air leaf agitation to try to expose greater leaf area during UVC treatment. They did see some success with powdery mildew, about half the effectiveness of fungicide. Higher doses and greater frequency did not significantly reduce disease severity. Combining UVC with fungicide further reduced powdery mildew severity, depending on how many times a week they treated. Angular leaf spot showed excellent reductions in disease severity, as you'll see in the photos at the right. One last point, the air agitation of the leaves actually worsened the effectiveness of the treatment, likely by spreading disease spores. Here are two field studies with UVC in grapes. The one on the left used a light source that flashed for 1 second to deliver a high dose, 800 joules per square meter. They treated the plants every 10 days. Both grape leaves and grape shoots showed reduced powdery mildew incidence and severity. Overall, they estimate that UVC had about half the effectiveness compared to fungicide. On the right was another study with two varieties of grape, Vignoles and Chardonnay, and several different diseases. They tested at low and moderate UVC doses once and twice a week, and they found that powdery mildew with Chardonnay UVC effectiveness was similar to fungicide. Downy mildew is especially tricky, and success depends on the grape variety. They did not show an impact with Chardonnay, but they did show 75% reduction in downy mildew with Vignoles variety. UVC reduced sour rot in the Vignoles variety, but for botrytis bunch rot, UVC was ineffective. By the time you're watching this, we may have our results from the 2025 season, in which we and our collaborators are testing UVC with LED modules and acorn squash. And our collaborators may also have results for the use of UVC to treat a major foliar disease in onions that is becoming resistant to fungicide, Staphylium leaf blight. For our latest plant health research updates, check out our webpage and our YouTube page. For more information about using UVC with various crops, check out these references, also listed in the annotated bibliography on our website. We want to say thank you to our sponsor, the New York Farm Viability Institute. Thank you to Chuck Bourne of Cornell Cooperative Extension, and thank you for watching this video.